In order to reach the area where the kraken was, Yoonha utilized a mobility skill he had acquired before his regression called a heavenly step. It was the first time he used this skill in his current body, and it proved to be quite overwhelming for a child's physique. Nevertheless, Yoonha had no other option but to rely on this skill if he wanted to reach the kraken quickly. Thanks to this skill, Yoonha was able to reach the kraken in no time. Leaving the other players confused as they witnessed him approaching the creature, they couldn't help but shout to Yoonha, expressing their concern about the extreme danger of going any further. However, it wasn't just the players who noticed Yoonha rapidly approaching. The divers also took notice of him and started to launch attacks. But Yoonha was not just a normal kid. He quickly coated his weapon with mana, initiating a swift and precise counterattack before the divers could reach him. With each strike, slash, kick, and stab, Yoonha effortlessly disposed of the small monsters that stood in his way. It became clear that these monsters were no match for Yoonha's exceptional abilities. However, Yoonha nearly got hit by one of the divers, which relentlessly attacked him. Fortunately, he managed to block the attack, causing him to stumble and tumble down momentarily. Yoonha quickly stood up, fearlessly facing the approaching divers. With unwavering determination, he launched a powerful strike that cleaved the monsters in half, just as he had done in the past. As he defeated the creatures, Yoonha felt his battle senses gradually returning, reigniting the familiarity and instincts he had honed before. In his thoughts, Yoonha recalled the sensation of eliminating all the monsters in his path before he regressed. In that moment, he felt the resurgence of the identity he once held before he returned. The man that known as Undead. Yoonha believed that he was on the verge of reclaiming that formidable persona he had possessed in the past. Yoonha propelled himself forward, slashing through the monsters, obstructing his path with the utility knife he had prepared. As he pressed on, a close encounter with a lurking monster beneath a car nearly resulted in a bite, but Yoonha's honed battle instincts from his previous life allowed him to effortlessly evade the creature's attack and swiftly deliver a decisive stab to its head. Unfortunately, Yoonha's utility knife didn't last long. After slicing through the last monster blocking his path, the blade of the knife broke, leaving him with only one remaining weapon, the scissors. Yoonha then now swiftly ran towards the location of the kraken, effortlessly leaping over the cars in his way and utilizing the heavenly step. Finally, Yoonha arrived at the front of the kraken. Yoonha was desperate to engage the kraken in battle, even though he is only using a scissor that he coated with his mana. As the kraken launched an attack, Yoonha skillfully dodged it. Seizing the opportunity, he swiftly managed to climb up the kraken's tentacle and start running upward, until he leaped to deliver a powerful strike. With all his strength, he repeatedly stabbed the kraken. However, the scissors alone was not enough to defeat the formidable creature. The kraken retaliated with a counterattack, forcing Yoonha to dodge and retreat. One of the scissor blades became unusable, leaving him with only one blade to continue his fight against the kraken. The kraken wielded its tentacles like deadly whips and launching relentless attacks towards Yoonha. Yet, Yoonha manages to skillfully evade each of the kraken's strike, while waiting for the perfect opportunity to unleash a counterattack. Finally, he identified the right moment and launched a powerful assault towards the kraken's head. However, Yoonha failed to notice the other tentacles sneaking up on him, and because of that their sudden attack sent him crashing to the ground. The frustration on Yoonha's face was obvious. That is on the brink of depleting his mana. At the very spot where Yoonha stood, the kraken unleashed its assault on the bridge's support posts, and causing the structure to collapse. Frustrated by the kraken's destruction of the bridge's structures, Yoonha quickly leaped over the falling debris to regain his footing. He landed on a stable section of the bridge, carefully avoiding the collapsing areas. After landing, Yoonha noticed one of the kraken's tentacles lifting a truck from the bridge, with the intention of throwing it towards his position. After that, Yoonha was shocked at the sight before him as the kraken threw a massive truck in his direction. With quick thinking, Yoonha channeled his mana, transforming it into a colossal sword-like shape, and skillfully slashed the incoming truck into pieces. After his heroic feat, a massive explosion erupted from the truck behind him. Yoonha didn't have a moment to rest as he felt his hands shaking. He quickly realized that the mana he had coated his scissors with was rapidly diminishing. It dawned on him that his mana reserves had been completely depleted. He is exhausted from exerting too much mana and, because of this, Yunhe slowly collapsed to the ground, unable to move a single inch of his body due to complete mana depletion. However, in Yunhe's thoughts, he was determined to stand up again because he knew that he couldn't afford to lose consciousness. If that were to happen, everything he had prepared and worked so hard for would be in vain. And by repeating the words "not yet" to himself, Yunhe forced himself to stand up again, questioning whether this was where things would end. Because Yunhe wanted to live a happy life with his family in this second life he had, and he didn't want this day to be the day he would die. Lost in his thoughts, he failed to notice that one of the kraken's tentacles was heading towards him. However, an unexpected miracle occurred. His sister Yuna followed him and shouted for the kraken not to attack her brother. Unconsciously, she created a powerful magic barrier that nullified all of the monster's attacks. Yunhe couldn't believe what he was seeing. He knew that what his sister had done was nothing short of a miracle. A miracle, a gift that can reshape the world by altering its laws. Prior to his regression, Yunhe was aware of 4 individuals who possessed the gift of miracle. Among them, the only person he could truly trust to have his back was his partner, Li Yuzhong. On that day that he saw the immense amount of mana his sister Yuna possessed, Yunhe couldn't help but wonder if she also possessed the gift of miracle. While lost in his thoughts, his sister Yuna told him, and reassuring him that everything would be alright. It was then that Yunhe realized that his injuries were gradually healing, thanks to the miracle his sister had cast. Not only that, but the barrier she created also shielded them from the kraken's attacks. However, Yunhe understood that nothing comes without a price. Those who possess the gift of miracle must pay a hefty cost to reshape the world. Yunhe immediately asked his sister if she was alright, and whether she felt any pain in her body. His sister then replied that she was fine, except that she felt incredibly sleepy as she shared her condition with Yunhe. She suddenly fell asleep. In Yunhe's mind, he realized that there was only a tiniest amount of mana left in his sister, just enough to keep her heart beating. It dawned on him that perhaps mana was the cost associated with his sister's ability to cast a miracle. Yunhe gently put his sister down, assuring her that she should rest well while he takes care of everything. With his mana replenished and his injuries healed, Yunhe was now ready to face the kraken once again. The kraken opened its eyes and fixed its gaze upon them. Yunhe boldly questioned the kraken if it now considered his sister a threat. In response, the kraken swiftly launched an attack towards them, but Yunhe skillfully deflected the incoming strike, declaring that the kraken would not be able to harm his sister anymore. Yunhe exerted all his efforts to protect his sister. He skillfully deflected each attack unleashed by the kraken. However, Yunhe was aware that only his mana had been replenished, and because of that, he was currently unable to defeat the kraken. However, the future he once knew had now changed, and none of his family members had perished. This realization instilled Yunhe with a newfound fearlessness. He no longer feared anything, and was determined to hold off the kraken until the 12 thrones arrived. At the time of the kraken's appearance, one of the 12 thrones was present on the Manhwa bridge, not too far from the scene. Meanwhile, in the area where one of the 12 thrones was located, he grew increasingly frustrated by the stagnant traffic ahead. He questioned his driver, asking if he was sure he was actually driving or merely pretending to do so while falling asleep. The driver responded by explaining that the roads were congested due to the large number of people in Seoul. Expressing his annoyance, the throne member retorted that he should resign from his position among the 12 thrones, as he had hoped to spend the golden holidays resting rather than being assigned a mission. His primary motivation for joining the 12 thrones was to fight alongside formidable individuals and not to protect civilians. While they were engaged in their conversation, both of them suddenly sensed an immense surge of mana. Shortly thereafter, the throne member received a call from one of his comrades. He inquired whether they had also sensed it, and asked about the rank of the monster that had appeared. The person on the other end of the line informed him that, based on the information they had received, it was supposedly a rank 3 monster known as the Kraken. Upon hearing the news, The throne member couldn't contain his excitement and immediately inquired about the exact location where the kraken had appeared. Observing his reaction, the driver couldn't help but marvel at his demeanor, despite the presence of a dangerous monster. The throne member seemed to be filled with joy upon receiving the information. The person on the phone informed him that the kraken had appeared on Seongsan Bridge. They further revealed that the players currently at the scene were unable to handle the monsters effectively, although the exact extent of the damage was unknown. Chaos had ensued, creating a state of complete turmoil. Before ending the call, the person assured him that they would come to pick him up. However, the member of the throne stepped out of the car, surprising his driver. The driver quickly reacted and asked him what he was doing. In response, he stated that he would reach there on foot, because the traffic jam would prevent them from making it in time. He now retrieved his sword from the back of the car, his driver still questioning whether it would be safe or not, knowing that it would take at least 2 hours to reach the destination by car. However, he confidently replied that he would arrive there in just 30 minutes. He then buffed himself with a strengthening buff before taking off with incredible speed. The driver was shocked by what he witnessed, realizing that such exceptional abilities were to be expected from their clan lord. The clan lord was crazy for fights. His only goal in life was to fight strong opponents. He was the Blades clan's lord known as Flame Demon Kang Hyunchul. 30 minutes later, the clan lord encountered some small monsters on his way to the scene where the kraken was. As he battled his way through, he noticed a powerful magic spell being cast ahead. Realizing that there was no one in the area capable of invoking such a spell, he smiled, considering the possibility of a new formidable individual appearing on the scene. Meanwhile, Yoonha skillfully held the kraken, preventing it from leaving the area. As he was engrossed in battle, the 12 thrones arrived, swiftly cutting one of the kraken's tentacles. Yoonha felt a sense of relief as he saw their rival. But to his surprise, it was Kang Hyunchul, the flame demon. Utilizing his gift, Kang Hyunchul unleashed his flame skills, burning one of the kraken's tentacles and forcing it to submerge into the water. Kang Hyunchul possessed the gift of pyrokinesis, which granted him the ability to control flames with ease. This was one of the reasons he was nicknamed the Demon Flame. The Demon Flame glanced around his surroundings and noticed the presence of two children nearby. He could sense a distinct mana flow emanating from Yoonha. Intrigued, he wondered if it was Yoonha who had cast the magic spell earlier before his arrival. The realization dawned upon Kang Hyunchul that Yoonha might have exhausted her mana and lost consciousness, while Yoonha valiantly protected her from the kraken. A smile formed on his face as he contemplated the potential power within both children, eagerly anticipating how strong they would become as players in the future. Kang Hyunchul approached the children with a reassuring tone, assuring them that there was no need to be intimidated as he had no intention of fighting them. At least not yet. However, despite his words, Yoonha remained tense and on guard in their current situation. The Demon Flame then explained that he had only one purpose for being there, which was to eliminate the kraken. He instructed them to stay back as he anticipated the kraken resurfacing from the water soon. Before Yoonha's regression, the Demon Flame had a personal encounter with him in the past. Because Yoonha has great reputation in the past, he approached Yoonha and inquired if he was the famous player known as the Undead. Yoonha replied and asked him directly if he had any business with him. Showing a menacing smile, the Demon Flame stated that he simply wanted to witness firsthand if Yoonha was as strong as the rumor says. He then promptly issued a challenge to Yoonha, eager for a fight. However, Yoonha showed no interest and declined the Demon Flame's challenge. Undeterred, the Demon Flame was determined to make Yoonha accept the challenge by any means necessary. Yoonha found himself with no other option but to reluctantly accept the duel. He warned the Demon Flame that he should not regret this decision, and began to emanate his formidable aura. The Demon Flame, in response, unleashed his powerful flames. The two adversaries clashed, and each displaying their overwhelming skills in a fierce battle. In the present, as Yoonha gazed at the Demon Flame, memories of his encounters with him in the past flooded his mind. The Flame Demon, Kang Hyunchul, had always sought out opportunities to challenge Yoonha to fights. Regrettably, Yoonha had never managed to defeat the Demon Flame even once. As he seemed to grow stronger with every battle, he was truly a formidable adversary. a born fighter, and a force to be reckoned with. Kang Hyunchul raised his voice and called out to the kraken, questioning whether it had no intention of emerging, or if it was simply afraid after being struck by a mere flicker of flames. To their surprise, the kraken struck the pillars supporting the platform they were standing on, causing the bridge to crumble. Kang Hyunchul quickly realized that he couldn't engage in combat with the kraken while simultaneously protecting the kids. Fortunately, someone invoked a spell and created two pillars using magic to be able to prevent the bridge from collapsing further. Kang Hyunchul noticed this and smiled, appreciating the impeccable timing. He looked up and teased the other member of the 12 Thrones, Park Hye-rim, by calling her by the name Holy Mother. Park Hye-rim then reminded Kang Hyunchul that she had asked him not to call her the Holy Mother because she felt she was not old enough to be given that title. She also sarcastically commented that he could have simply arrived at the scene using a helicopter instead of running all the way to Seongsan Bridge. Kang Hyunchul responded by stating that the most important thing was for him to arrive at the scene, and the means of transportation were not significant. Park Hye-rim then informed him that reinforcements would be arriving soon, and a rescue operation would commence shortly. She advised him to shift his focus back to fighting the kraken. While she was informing him, he noticed that she was simultaneously casting buffs around him. The demon flame stated that he didn't need buffs, to which she replied that he should just accept them without objection. Hearing her reasoning, the demon flame relented and instructed her to take care of the kids. She agreed to this arrangement as well. The kraken began to resurface, preparing to launch another attack. As soon as it emerged, the demon flame swiftly attacked, exclaiming that it had finally come out. He leaped and dove into the water, surprising the kraken. With his body engulfed in flames, he approached the kraken, effortlessly walking on the water's surface. In response, the kraken unleashed a massive tentacle attack, but it had no effect on the demon flame. He retaliated with his own powerful attacks, mocking the kraken as a weakling. With a mighty sword slash infused with flames, he dealt burning damage to the kraken. With that last attack, he slowly anew his flame skills because the demon flame was sure that the kraken has been defeated. With relief evident on Yuna's face, he declared to himself that it was finally over because the kraken had been defeated. Park Hye-rim approached Yunha and his sister Yuna, asking them if they were alright. She reassured them not to worry because she would use healing magic on both of them. However, to her surprise, she noticed that the kids didn't have a single wound on them. Because of this, she couldn't help but wonder if the magic she had witnessed before she arrived was a miracle. Filled with excitement, she smiled, realizing that she had witnessed a miracle. As Park Hye-rim began to use healing magic on Yuna, Yunha suddenly told her to stop and not to touch her sister. Park Hye-rim was shocked by what happened, and in her thoughts, she wondered how a child like Yunha could have such a strong killing intent. She couldn't help but ask if what kind of person Yunha is. But she didn't finish her question because the reinforcements had arrived. Yunha then looked at the helicopters landing, where they were located.